everyone. Can you see my screen now? My presentation. So that's the topic for today, and the current knowledge and research gaps. And already Hazen introduced me, so nothing to introduce anymore. Let's jump on the subject. Now we'll see what is iron and why we are like why we have to understand the iron. Is it really necessary for you, or it's just why the curriculum has included iron in your subjects? So iron is an essential micronutrient. Why it's essential? Because it helps to carry your oxygen from the lungs to all over your body. Now without that, probably without iron you will not have hemoglobin, which is really important part in in your body, as well as myoglobin that forms your muscles and makes them healthy. So that's the main reason for including iron in your syllabus, and you need to know them, know the characteristics of iron. The next thing is how much iron we we are recommended to take, that is around 10 to 20 milligram per day. But it varies from country wise, it varies from gender to gender, and even in the special circumstances like pregnancy or lactating mother, they have higher requirement of iron. And liver gets stored mainly in liver, spleen, and bone marrow in the form of ferritin. Now moving on to the next slide, what is the functions of iron? One of the main function I already mentioned is carrying oxygen from lungs to the rest of the body using hemoglobin. The next thing is to maintain a healthy immunity system. So iron helps to boost up our antigen antibody mechanism, and helps to prevent all kind of virus and bacteria and foreign substances in our to attack our body. The third thing is aiding energy production. So iron helps to produce energy, and it has a contribution in lot of enzymes like iron catalase, peroxidase, and cytochrome enzymes. Those enzymes helps to produce enzyme. So it is not a direct effect, but it is a effect that is like, it is an indirect effect through the different steps or different mechanisms. Moving on to our next slide. So if you have, what happens if iron is low in your body? Is that going to be a problem or not? But we can see it is really a big problem. So if you have an iron deficiency, you tend to feel these symptoms, sometimes shortness of breath, weakness, pale skin, poor focus in your studies, restlessness of your legs, headache, and heart palpitations. These are the few symptoms in the early stage when you have iron deficiency you can feel. So we know the deficiency. We need to know what are the sources of iron, because if we don't know the source of iron, how we'll take that food, right? So there are mainly two sources, and depending upon the quality of iron or the structural integrity of iron, we can mainly divide it into two. One is heme iron and another one is non-heme iron. Now heme iron, as you can see, I have written in red. So it mostly comes from the animal sources. Not mostly, it comes from animal sources like from lamb, liver, beef, chicken, fish, and so on. And the major form is hemoglobin or myoglobin. On the other hand, if you look at the non-heme iron sources, you can find so many plant options like tofu or soya meat or soya milk, that is a rich source of non-heme iron, spinach, broccoli, dried beans and legumes, dried fruits, nuts, and fortified cereals. So cereals that you can buy in the shop, if they have the fortified version, then it also mostly non-heme iron. And these ions are mainly in the form of ferric citrate or ferrous fumarate. These are the only just two examples, but it can be really at any form, like ferrous sulfate or any other form that can be incorporated. Now, what I already told, there is two form, heme ion and non-heme ion. What is heme ion? So heme ion is basically, as I told you, it's only found in animal sources like meat, especially red meat has higher amount of heme iron. Approximately 40% of a meat is heme and 60% of that is non-heme iron. But plant doesn't contain any heme iron. Now, these heme ions are really good for absorption in human body and really have less effect of any other factors in the absorption. What about then non-heme ion? So non-heme ions are mainly found in plant foods, but also in animal foods as well, but in lower amount. It is not well absorbed, and there are so many other factors that can affect non-heme ions absorption. So non-heme ion absorption can vary from under a 1% to up to 20% in a human body, and sometimes it is really difficult if you don't have animal protein to compensate the iron need in your body. Now, I already told heme and non-heme iron, they can be really different from the perspective of absorption. So today we'll look at the absorption pathway. So iron, as you all know, they are mainly of two forms. One is ferrous and another is ferric form. Ferrous is Fe2 plus at the +2 state, and ferric is at the +3 state. So when we are having a food that contains iron, there is nothing pretty much happen in our mouth. It starts with the stomach. And in the stomach, at the presence of hydrochloric acid, the acid environment releases the iron from the food. Then the food comes to our small intestine, and we have microvilli and villi with the blood vessels that has the capabilities to absorb them. So we'll really look at the lumen of small intestine and how this iron get absorbed. So this is the schematic diagram of the absorption process. Now again, on the right hand side, you can see there is hemoglobin. So that is obviously the heme ion absorption process. And on your left, that's your non-heme ion absorption process. As the heme ion absorption process is quite simple, I'll start with that. So the hemoglobin, using the acid environment, it gets broken and the heme molecules get released from the hemoglobin, from the bigger structure. And the heme ion gets absorbed readily using the HCP1 pathway in the intestinal cell or duodenal cell lumen. And from there, it can either form a ferrin, is a form that can store inside the your intestinal cell, or the heme oxygenase. It is an enzyme that breaks down the heme ion and release the ferrous form. Then the ferrous ion gets transported to the blood using the ferropoietin transporter. Now, if you look at the non-heme ion pathway, it is basically in your food, you have both ferrous and ferric ion. And ferric ion cannot be directly absorbed, so it needs to be converted into ferrous form. And this conversion happens very well, or it increases in presence of any citric acid or ascorbic acid containing foods. That's why we recommend to have like lemons with the iron supplements, because that initiate conversion from ferric to ferrous ion. And once the ferrous ion is formed, it is transported using DMT1 pathway. So that is the transporter, and transporter is named DMT1, and that's why this whole process is called DMT1 pathway. So once the ferrous ion gets absorbed in the duodenal absorptive cell, the ferrous ion then again gets transported in your blood using the ferropoietin transporter, which is exactly similar with the heme ion transport. Now, what happened after that? Because as you can see, ferrous ion was transported, and in the blood, it's converted into the ferric ion. And then transferrin, which is like your car. When you arrive in the airport, car comes to take you at home. So same thing here. Transferrin is your car, and it's taking the ferric ion. Now, how it will go to home, that's the next story we'll see. So here is what happens from the transferrin. As you can see, in the blood vessels, there is transferrin, and that is taking all the ferric ions. And this transferrin with ferric ion mostly goes to bone marrow for the formation of blood, which is called erythropoiesis. And 10 to 20%, like we can't expect 100% to be transported in our organs. So around, we can expect 80 to 90%. That is a really good number. So around 10 to 20% goes to a liver. Again, in the liver means it will get stored in the form of ferritin. So I already told it goes to your bone marrow, 75%, majority of the portion, and for the formation of blood. So the iron will be introduced in the process of red blood cell formation, and it will form the red blood cell and go back to your circulation again, blood circulation again. But what happens with the 10-20%? How it gets stored in the liver? So this is kind of a mechanism how it gets stored. So from liver, if you look at very carefully on your left side, you can see it's an extracellular fluid, and the right side is intracellular fluid of liver cell. Now, every cell have an extracellular fluid and intracellular fluid. As the transferrin with ferric ion coming from outside, it will be obviously at the extracellular fluid at the first. And using the transferrin receptor, the transferrin ferric complex goes inside the intracellular fluid, and using the endocytosis, the release of ferric ion process starts. Now, at the acid environment, that means with a higher amount of hydrogen ion, all the transferrin release the ferric ion, and with DMT transport channel, the ferric ion comes out of the transferrin. Now, these transferrins are a transporter, like your Uber, or maybe what are other car service that you use. So that has to go to airport again. So it comes out of the intracellular fluid through the transferrin receptor channel and goes back to the blood. So that's how it happens, like a cycle. Once the transferrin reach the blood again, it will capture some of the ferric ion. It will exactly in the same way, it will transport into the liver. So that's how the iron gets stored in your liver, and it forms ferritin. It is no more in the ferric form, it forms the ferritin and gets stored into the liver for the future use. If you have iron deficiency, liver will start depleting the ferritin and releasing the ferrous iron in your blood, in your system. So that's how the whole system works. Now, it was a long story about iron absorption, and now we'll look at the factors that affect iron absorption. Iron is pretty much like a naughty kid, and they don't want to listen what you want them to do. Sometimes they really love their lollies and they do their homework very quickly, and sometimes they really don't. And so to make the iron work, so to increase the absorption, you have to add, like you can take meat, poultry, or fish, those animal foods, because they contain heme iron, and that makes it easier for them to absorb. And also you can add vitamin C. That means any citrus fruit like lemon, lime, or any other in your diet. Alcohol also increases the iron absorption, but if you take too much of alcohol, that will cause other diseases like liver cirrhosis, which affects iron absorption. Now, there are a bunch of human body mechanism that also increase or enhance iron absorption. For example, if you are anemic, or if you are suffering from iron deficiency, your body will automatically start absorbing the iron from the food because it wants to compensate the deficiency. Similar to that, the low body storage, if you have lower storage in your liver, it will start absorbing more and more iron. The increased gastric acid secretion in your stomach, that initiates iron absorption. Bile and pancreatic secretion. Hypoxia, so if you go to higher altitude, you will find the iron absorption is more. Pregnancy, it's a really a special occasion because your fetus is growing inside your body, so the fetus has high demand for iron, so body will automatically start absorbing more and more iron. And if the supply of iron is not enough, at that time you may see the pregnancy related anemia and so on. Now, the enhancer factor list is not too big, but inhibitor list is really big enough. So all the phytates or phytochemicals that is present in your plant-based foods, they inhibit the absorption. So that is one of the main reason why non-heme iron is not well absorbed, because there are so many other components like phytochemicals mainly, or flavonoids, that inhibit the iron absorption. Never take tea, coffee, egg, or dairy products with your iron supplements, because that will again hamper the iron absorption, especially mentioning the dairy products because it contains higher concentration of calcium, and with the presence of higher concentration of calcium, iron never gets really absorbed. Some trace minerals like zinc and copper also sometimes inhibit iron absorption. There are some other factors like your body mechanism, like if your body already absorbed higher concentration of iron, probably it will, or it has already a higher storage, it will start decreasing the absorption because it is already enough in your body. So that's it for the iron absorption. Moving on to the diseases. Now, as we mentioned, that if you have the deficiency, it will cause anemia. But if it is absorbed more, then also there is some conditions that is called hemochromatosis or hemosiderosis, that can happen. So at your left, you can see what are the symptoms, and you can really feel tired, like just climbing 2 steps. You can feel weak in the morning at around 10 o'clock, dizzy, pale skin. Now, pale skin is really like lusterless skin, so your skin will be really fed. Hands and feet can be cold, palpitation, chest pain, headache, and cognitive problem as well. As you can see, the person is thinking what will be 1 plus 2. It can be a little bit more complex, but yes, it is the cognitive problem. So these are the pretty much symptoms for anemia, but again, it may be for something else, but these are the primary symptoms when you can start going to your GP, that these are the symptoms occurring. Is there any problem if you have so? And on the other hand, if the iron absorption in your body is more and liver is getting screwed, it is getting exhausted with the absorption of iron, it is the hemochromatosis and hemosiderosis. Your intestinal tract will be fed up with the iron absorption, and you tend to see the fat, you will see liver cirrhosis and sometimes many organ failure, because iron get deposited in your skin, and you will see the skin color will change. So there will be a pigmentation in your skin, heart, because iron gets deposited in your heart during this situation, and heart failure can occur, liver cirrhosis, liver failure, and pancreatic cancer. If the iron get deposited in the pituitary gland, it decreases or increases, it causes a imbalance of all the hormones, and obviously if it deposits in your joint, it will cause arthritis and so on. So these are the 2 main condition or disease state can occur. Now we have studied so much about iron, the function, the like what are the disease condition, how it gets absorbed, what is the reason of what is happening around you. That is very important. What is happening around the world? Is it cause, like, is there any disease happening? If you look at this world map, which is collected from WHO, World Health Organization, you can see many countries, they have a severe anemia, which is around or more than 40%. Some of the African, Asian, and Latin American countries. But there are many European and American countries where you can see still moderate and mild iron deficiency. And this is across all gender or all age groups. So it is a really severe issue all around the globe, and that's why we are taking the iron so seriously around the world. So many researchers or many group of researchers are working on this problem, how to solve the problem, how to solve this anemia. Because if you think about a mother, if a mother has anemia, it doesn't only affect the mother, it also affect their kids, affect their fetus. Because if mother doesn't have enough iron, automatically by birth, the fetus or the newborn baby will be anemic, and that will affect their cognitive power, their growth and development. And that's how we are inheriting, like we are inheriting anemia as like a genetic disorder. So we really need to break the vicinity of anemia. To do that, one of the most effective way, that is the fortification. So fortification means when your food doesn't have enough iron or desired form of iron that can be absorbed in your body, we add extra amount of iron from the, it can be in different forms from the outside in your food and do certain processings, and that's called fortification. Now for iron fortification, as you can see, bunch of things I have written on the slides. It can start with ferrous sulfate to up to ferric oxohydroxide, ferrous fumarate, and with vitamins, ferric phosphate. There is number of things. Maybe the list is more bigger than just what I have given you in the slides. It's just few example. And so in my research, I'm working with iron with vitamins. As I told you already, that ascorbic acid or vitamin C has an important role in iron absorption. I am looking at vitamin B12 and iron absorption. Now you can ask me why I'm choosing vitamin B12, nothing else. So the main reason was vitamin B12 is present only in animal foods naturally and not in the plant foods. And also the iron absorption from plant foods is far better. Sorry, iron absorption from animal foods are far better than plant foods. So that's the, I it was my reasoning that might be vitamin B12 has some kind of role in iron absorption, and that's why they are probably present together. I'm looking at iron fortification in plant-based food, and I'm also adding vitamin B12 and observing if that has any effect on iron absorption, so that in future we can add them together and improve the bioavailability absorption in your body. I saw some kind of trend in the higher, like in the increasing of the bioavailability, but yes, not yet finished yet. Now, if I talk about some gaps and which you might be interested more on, in every iron supplements or every iron, for every form of iron that can be fortified, there must be some research gap, but for iron nanoparticles it is more obvious. Now what is nanoparticles? Now, whatever we are having, that is a macro size, and if we make it to nano, so the particle size is going smaller and smaller, that's called nanoparticles. Now iron size is made into very small and tiny size, that's iron nanoparticles. These nanoparticles have very different characteristics than all these above mentioned iron forms. These nanoparticles sometimes doesn't follow the DMT1 pathway, which is normally followed by all the different forms of non-heme iron. They are very tiny in size, and it can get actively absorbed through the slip way. It doesn't sometimes follow the normal absorption pathway. But what we don't know yet, if these nanoparticles are safe for the human body. Once the nanoparticles are getting absorbed, is it still in the nano form, or few nanoparticles are joining together and forming a macro form? What is happening? What are the mechanism happening? We don't know yet. If these nanoparticles are generating any oxidative stress in our body, because oxidative stress is really bad for our health. It is the initiation of all the different comorbid stages. So we really need to know if these nanoparticles are safe for human body, and if these nanoparticles are getting deposited in any of the organs like brain, heart, liver, or even kidneys, that can damage our organs in long run. So we really need to know what is exactly happening with these nano iron particles before we can start fortifying them in our food to prevent anemia. So that's was it for today's presentation. This is my email address. If you want to contact with me, I'm very much happy. And I also have a very small Facebook page where I try to upload all my little knowledges. So if you want, you can just follow my page. It's just nutrition. And I have given the logo because it is so small that you might find some other page in the same name. So it is with that logo. And thank you. Thank you so much for listening my talk. It might be helpful for your studies. And so I'm very happy to take any questions you have. Thank you.